Hello and welcome to the Pastor's Wife podcast, brought to you by the Calvary Chapel Association, where we seek to encourage and equip women in ministry. In today's episode, Lauren O'Neill has a conversation with Ashley Blevins about her children's education journey while being called to multiple states. We hope you enjoy today's episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Pastor's Wives podcast. I'm your co-host today, Lauren O'Neill, and I am so excited to have Ashley Blevins here with us in studio today. Ashley, why don't you say hello to all of our listeners?
Hello, everybody. Thank you so much
Ashley,
for having me.
we are so excited to have you on, and Wade and Josh have known each other for a long time, and Ashley and I are just starting to get to know each other. So I'm so excited for her to be on and for everyone to hear her story. So Ashley, let's just get right into it. Tell us how you met your husband. Josh, he is a regional leader out in the Midwest, but I'm going to let you fill in all the details. And then we are actually going to hear a little bit of Ashley's story and then go into some educational things regarding our children and school system. So I'm super excited because Ashley is a wealth of knowledge in that area. So I'm going to hand it over to Ashley.
Wow. I don't know that I would say a wealth of knowledge, but thank you, Laura. Hello, everybody. I met my husband, Josh, when we were much younger, when I was in high school, actually, at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. We both grew up in Southern California, and he sensed the call to ministry right off the bat. So I knew to some degree what I was getting into, but do you ever really know what it's like until you really jump in with both feet and you start that journey with the Lord and you realize, first of all, wow, I'm so not prepared for this. And then also, how can God use us, right? Especially for us, we were very young when we got our first call out of School of Ministry. The Lord sent us out to Georgia. We served under Pastor Sandy Adams in Stone Mountain, which was a really incredible 5 years where not only were we involved at the church there, but I think the easiest way to say it is Pastor Sandy took Josh's statement of, I believe God called me to be a pastor one day, a senior pastor one day, seriously. And he said, I'm going to train this young man up. And so we were very blessed to have that at that formative time in our relationship and also in ministry. Our two girls were born there. We have Taylor is our oldest, and Kayla is our middle child. They were about 19 months apart. They came much earlier than we were anticipating.
Oh.
And I thought, good, they've got a Christian school there in Stone Mountain. Maybe I can teach there, and maybe they can go to school there. And Pastor Sandy and Kathy are wonderful, and they're like in-town grandparents for the girls. So even though we moved away from family, it's going to be okay. And the Lord had different things in plan for us. It was right about the time our oldest was getting ready for kindergarten, actually, that Pastor Sandy and Josh were talking and prayed together. And the long and the short of it was that he was sent out to his first pastorate across the city. And that very much rocked my world. It was like, what are we going to do now? What are our education plans going to be? What is this going to look like? It was at a time when the economy had a downturn and we couldn't sell our home, and we were 70 miles from the church that he was pastoring, and it looked completely different than anything I had ever imagined. And in that season, the Lord really had to work in my heart to say, are you in this to serve me? Are you in this to trust me? Are you willing to take steps of faith? Do you believe that I can provide? Do you believe that I can restore the time that feels like it's lost? Do you believe that I care about your girls? Because right now they don't see their daddy a lot with this distance and just the weight of pastoring a church that had gone through hard things, had lost their pastor under some sinful circumstances. And then add to that just the fear of, is this place going to fly or is it going to fail? Because it was not doing well financially. It had lost so many people, and
Right.
your heart is torn. You want to really, really invest in the church. You're so far away. You want to help your kids through the transition and school. Um, they would have loved Calvary Christian School at Stone Mountain, and I would have loved to teach there, but we realized very quickly Daddy was home on Mondays and he would never see his girls. So we began our homeschooling journey that year. We were praying, and it was like, well, it's just kindergarten. I went to school to be a teacher. How I could do kindergarten, right?
Right. You're
Um,
like, I got the numbers and the letters. We're good.
you know, and it's funny because your oldest is ready for school, but the youngest, when
Yeah.
they're that close in age, is like, I can do what you can do.
Yeah.
I'm into. So they kind of both did a level of kindergarten together. Um, that was a year, 3 years actually, that I just
Hmm.
watched the Lord take care of things in a way that I couldn't have imagined. I
Yeah.
watched him care for the church. I watched him grow the church, but just at the right speed. Because if your church grows
Mm.
too fast, you don't have any nursery workers. If your church grows too slow, you can't keep the light bill on. And God took care of everything. He
He
provided
really
time
does set
for,
the pace.
yeah, he so does. And he took care of us emotionally too through that transition. I look back on it and see how many lessons the Lord taught me about relying on him. The Lord
Mm.
taught me about entrusting my children to him. And that the Lord taught my husband about how can I bring my family along when it's not locationally convenient to do.
Mm.
Um, Mixed in with those lessons were a lot of failures on both of our part, and you watched God's faithfulness through all of that. Um, and yeah, we did pre-K, we did kindergarten, we did first grade, and we got another call from Pastor Sandy. And he said, there's this church in Northern California that's gone through a really similar circumstance to what the church you guys are in
Hmm.
weathered. And the Lord just put you on my heart, Josh. I think you need to talk to their board. And little did
Wow.
we know that that would mean a very quick transition from 3 really wonderful years of ministry in Kennesaw to our going back to our home state there in Northern California. Um, we we moved. We said goodbye to the friends that we had made.
Mm.
We said goodbye to the state that our girls knew. And when we arrived in Northern California, it was very much out, out of the pan into the fire. I don't know
Yes.
how else to say it. It was a really hard year. It was a
Yeah.
hard year, but we had so much confirmation that the Lord is in this. The Lord is sending us here, and He's going to take care of it. And before we had moved, they did a goodbye party for us. And this woman that I had never seen before, none of the people there knew who she was. And so you just go, was that one of those angels unaware, or was it someone new to the church that I just hadn't met yet? But she said,
Yeah.
the Lord showed me you're going to have a baby when you move, and it's going to be a boy. And I was
Oh.
like, oh, okay, well, that's weird. That's, that's interesting. Okay, thanks for letting me know. You have a good day. Be blessed. Um, and we got there, and things were hard. The church had gone through brokenness. The
Mm.
pastor had been unfaithful to his wife and had left, and they had been in a year-long search. And there was just a lot that place was going through. And coupled with there was a church split that was happening right before we
Right.
got there, and so there was some antagonistic individuals. And in the midst of all of that, the Lord just quieted my heart, saying, I see you, I see your kids, I see your
Wow.
husband, I've called you here, and I am going to be faithful to this place, like I was faithful to the last, and like I was when you moved to Stone Mountain. Um, and then I went to a pastor's wives retreat and I got the flu. I threw up And then I went home and I kept throwing up and said, Josh, I don't think I have the flu. I might need to take a test. And come to find out I was pregnant with our son. So,
Wow.
not knowing that
Wow.
lady or any of that, it was just one of those things where you go, well, whatever that was, Lord, you just
Oh,
showed me that, and that's so so kind. Um, that led into education because, well, we've got a baby on the way. We've been homeschooling, and we came to this church where there's a thriving homeschool community. Um, so many other friends, our kids age, and we thought maybe we'll keep going. It's been working so far, and God opened a lot of opportunities in that season. We were able to do a homeschool co-op with some other families in our church. We were able to join a charter school up in Northern California that was connected with a public school. So it enabled us to do some field trips with families that would never darken the door of a church. Some of
right.
them that were actually very atheistic in their philosophy on life and their views of religion. And so without sending our kids into the public school realm, we were still able to interact with families in our community. And
That's
that was a
amazing.
really, really cool season. Um, but yeah, as our kids grew older and came into middle school, high school, the question came again: what are we going to do? Is this something
Let,
that we want to
let
do for
me,
the long haul?
let me interrupt you really quick because I want
Yeah.
to just touch on something that you keep doing. And every season and every year, I want to acknowledge that you didn't just assume you were going to continue to homeschool.
Yes.
You sought the Lord every year, every season, every move. And I think that's so wise. And I think there's a lot of wisdom there as moms, not to just assume, okay, well, we've been doing this every year, or
Yes.
this is what we've always done. But I love that you sought the Lord for each child, for each situation, for each season. And so I just wanted to highlight that there
Yeah.
because I think sometimes we can miss out on maybe something else that God wants to do
Yes.
or that He wants us to be open to when we just don't take that time just to simply ask Him, what do you want us to do?
Yeah. Well, and for every child too,
Mm-hmm.
because we had our two girls, we had our son. There's an age range between them, but there's a personality range too, and a learning style
Mm-hmm.
range. And you know, they are part of a family, and you need to do what's right as a family, but you need
Yes.
to do what's right for your individual children too.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, thank you for pointing that out.
Yes,
But
I
yeah,
wanted to hit on that.
we we always thought we'll just be in one place. We will plant
Mm.
roots. We're going to invest. I had moved a lot as a child, and I married my husband and went, he's a boy from Chino. He's going to want to just stay in one place. I'm going to settle down. I'm going to set up my house. It's going to be great. Um, we were actually talking right before we started this podcast,
Mhm.
and I told Lauren we hit 20 years of marriage this year. And we've lived in 13 different houses. We moved
Oh
from
my
Southern California to Georgia to the other side of Atlanta to Northern California. And then in 2019, the Lord took us to Southern California for a completely different season than anything in the past. At that point, He had sent us to churches that were hurting, that had experienced brokenness from leadership. And
Right.
this time, He transitioned us back to our home church, not knowing that 2020 was coming and all that that entailed for education. We had just, oh my goodness, there's so many stories in there and there's just no time. But we had just thought we were going to do a local homeschool co op for our oldest daughter, and it didn't work out
Okay.
well. And so we prayed, Lord, what are we going to do? Am I going to teach everything? Am I not? And we found an online Christian school that the kids interact with a live teacher and they interact with their peers. They are accountable to turn in their things, but you as a parent come alongside and help with it. And we thought, let's give this a try. This sounds really good.
Hmm.
Prayed about it, felt a peace, did that. right before we knew that we were going to be moving. But the Lord was 10 steps ahead, as He always is,
Hmm.
because our daughter didn't have to say goodbye to her school. She didn't have to say goodbye to
Oh, wow.
her teachers. She was able to continue on with her lessons when we moved. And so that really bridged a gap. And that
When
year
you
was
left
so,
Southern California, you were
when
able
we,
to.
my apologies, when we left Northern California to go to Southern
Okay,
California.
got it. Okay.
Um, and so with the girls being so close in age, it was not far behind that we went ahead and had her sister join this online school.
Wow.
And I want to pause it here. I know you had said give story, but we're talking about education. I learned a lesson with that switch that I wish I had known earlier on in the process.
Mm,
And that is homeschooling needs to serve your family if you are
I
going
love
to
that.
homeschool.
I love that.
You don't serve homeschooling. You pray and say, Lord, what is the right form of education for this season, for this child, for our family, for all of it, and for our budget? But then you find a way that homeschooling serves the mission God has given your family, not the other way around. Um, Being able to outsource the courses that were harder for one of our children to learn or maybe caused a little bit more friction between me as an instructor and them as a student
Right.
was transformational because no longer was I the bad guy trying to force them to learn something that was a struggle. I was able to become an ally in that subject. And
That's
it was
amazing.
a really beautiful thing. I wish I had known about this program a long time ago because probably would have outsourced math right about third grade and just said, here, do it there.
I stop here.
Yep. Yeah. That I will continue your journey in other courses, but math is going
Oh,
to be here. But I'm so thankful for so many older wise women who've gone
mm,
before that we were able to talk and pick their brain and if anything just be encouraged that it's a process, it's a journey, and it's something that is unique. Yes, you need to grow in it. Yes, you need to do the best job you can with what the Lord supplies for your
absolutely.
child's education. But you don't have to fill someone else's shoes to do that successfully.
And I
Um,
love that you said that because maybe there's people listening and moms are thinking, well, I'm not a teacher. I didn't go to school for this, or how can I figure out which route looks best for
yeah.
my child? What would you recommend to maybe someone who's been praying about it? Maybe they are in ministry and homeschooling
Mhm.
just fits their needs better, or so I want to throw that question out to you
Yeah.
first, but then maybe you can also talk about what are the options are if homeschooling isn't,
Yeah.
available to somebody, or it's just not the right fit, or maybe you're working or you're at the
Sure.
church full time, just different options.
Okay. Well, with that, the next and current part of our journey was, we were in Southern California
Yeah.
during 2020 and all of that. Pastor Sandy actually had given Josh a call and uh, told him about this church in the Midwest to encourage. Never in a million years did we think, oh, that's the Lord's next place for you, and that we would be in the Midwest. We actually had to find it on a map. We told our church, I knew where Missouri was because we had family relatives that had moved to California during the Dust Bowl of all things from Missouri, but I still had to find it on a map. And And the Lord brought us here. And when we came to St. Joseph, it was a completely different community than anything
Mm.
we'd ever experienced. It was a completely different climate. It was actually negative 18 degrees the day that we pulled into town. It was the
Oh,
day
wow.
before Valentine's Day, and it was so cold.
I don't think I've
But
ever felt weather that cold before.
well, it was funny because they were like, it's never like this. We promise it'll be warmer next winter. And then it ended up being colder at one point the next winter. But you acclimate, right? You acclimate.
Right.
But coming into that church, we had started homeschooling in kindergarten, just thinking we can do 1 year. Every year we had reassessed, felt confirmation that this is what the Lord has for us. And then we got here and our kids were in an online program. And so that should transition over nicely. But it didn't. It just didn't seem right. We were praying and it was very clear this is not what we're supposed to be doing in this season. No real clarity as to why, other than we knew that the youth group was still being built up. We didn't really know a lot of families, and just giving our children an opportunity to meet friends alone was a challenge. But right around the time we were praying and not feeling at peace about our current option, we were approached to let us know about a local Christian school in the area. And not even on our radar, we ended up putting all three of our kids into the school. Now, I will say, if you're contemplating a Christian school, just because they put the name Christian over their door doesn't mean much. And I still laugh with the administration team there at the school because they were interviewing us to see if we were a good fit for their school. And we were interviewing them because we weren't sure what we were getting into. And they said, I think you guys asked more questions than any prospective family ever has. Good, do it. Make sure you ask those doctrinal questions. Ask those just culture questions. What is your school's value system? How do you view history? How do you approach science? How do you approach Bible? Because it's really important to know who's discipling your kids. It's one thing if your children are in a secular setting, you expect that they are not hearing anything of the Lord. But it can be very confusing if they're in a Christian setting and they're hearing something that isn't true. Yeah. So that's just my little sidebar there. But, it was a good first year. It was very hard for our oldest daughter. She was a junior going in, and she finished out her junior and senior there at the school. But that's a big transition at that time in life when you don't know anyone. And I applaud her for how she navigated that. Our middle daughter was going in as a freshman and our son in second grade. But I prayed, Lord, this is a new season for me. We mamas can often get our identity wrapped up in what we do. Yeah. I'm married to a pastor. I serve in women's ministry for some of you. For others of you, you might serve in children's ministry or on the worship team. Whatever it is that God has called you to, that is something that's your act of service to the Lord, but it can so easily become an identity. Yeah. Homeschooling can be that too. And when the Lord strips that away, there's that moment that you say, Lord, I recognize this is a completely different season than anything else. I need you to show me what is it that you want for me in this season.
Absolutely.
Every single one of you is going to have a different answer to that question. Yeah. I didn't have an answer. I got a phone call asking, hey, we need someone to teach just one class. That's the gateway. They get you with one class. I did it for 1 year. And the next year it was, how about full time? It was like, oh Lord, with what I do at the church, with what I do with my kids, I don't know if I can do that. And He really challenged me. There's 52 weeks in a year. Mm-hmm. If you have a Sunday morning service only church and you're gone a couple weeks, let's just say someone in church gets 48 weeks of messages. The Lord just really, really hit my heart with, they want to give you 160 to 70 days, 45 minutes a day to teach 75 girls Bible. Wow. Why are you even asking if this is what I want you to do right now? And it has been a stretching season. It's been a different season, but I just finished up a year doing that with 7th, 8th, and 9th grade Bible at that school, along with history and some other courses. But I look at the faithfulness of God because when I moved out to Georgia and followed Josh to the church there, I had one semester left of school. And I have
Mhm.
to really honor Pastor Sandy right now because I didn't think I would be able to finish my degree when I found out I was pregnant, and so
Mhm.
far. And he had told me that it was important to him when he asked us to come. But when our second daughter was born, I remember we were all at a wedding, and he just said, when the time comes, that offer still stands. I want to help you finish.
Oh, wow.
And through a complicated story, the Lord
Right.
opened doors. I was able to do it, and he enabled Pastor Sandy enabled that. But I remember when I got that call from the school here, we'd like you to come teach Bible, thinking back to how little faith I had back then. I'll never be able to finish. And the Lord took care of something that he knew would be needed in the future for a
Yeah.
different work than what I anticipated,
Yeah.
that I couldn't see at that time. So if you are a pastor's wife just starting out, if you have little kids at home, I want to encourage you to soak up this season and enjoy every second you get with your
Yeah.
children. Serve in the church, love your husbands, and love your children. It's a very quickly fleeting season.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like I blinked and our oldest got married and she moved to Texas. And
Oh my goodness.
I have another one that's driving and graduating this year. And I've got my baby who is going into fifth grade.
Wow.
And it's a new season. Um, that season before had felt like it would just last forever. I'm very excited about this new one. But
Yeah.
But enjoy every moment, ladies, because it is precious and it is a gift. And your children, they will be blessed for that
Yeah.
time you invest with them.
I
But
love
to
that you
get,
ended with the
oh, yeah.
seasons. One of my favorite things that Sharon, my pastor's wife, shared with me, and I've held on to it, and I try to
Mhm.
remember it, is just to live life in seasons. And
Yes.
so, we're so, as young girls, we just want to get married and have our families. And, we're just waiting for God to bring the right person. And he brings that person. And then it's like, hey, when are we going to have kids? And then when you have kids, you're like, when am I going to get out of that baby season? Like, I'm never sleeping and they're always crying. And then it's, the toddler season and they're little kids. And I just feel like there's constantly, seasons are always changing in our lives. But I love that you exhorted the women to really soak in those times, because the kids grow up so fast.
Yeah.
And ministry will always be there. There will always
Mhm.
be things going on. Um, but to really, put your family first, and to make sure that your home is good, that your kids are good. And, Ashley, people in ministry, some have stayed where they're at, some have, transitioned churches, some have traveled and, gone out of country, or whatever their story
Mhm.
looks like. Will you just really quickly, while we begin to wrap up, just talk about just staying in touch with your kids through the importance of staying in touch with your kids through the different transitions
Yeah.
and the different seasons of life?
Yeah. Well, and with that, I want to address the question that you had about
Oh, yes, I did ask you another
choosing,
one.
because I totally didn't include that answer, but it goes together because if you find yourself in an area where you are putting your children in public school,
Yeah.
you really need to be aware of what they are being taught. I talked about how when I was praying about teaching at the school, I realized how many hours they were offering me to disciple young women. The person teaching your child is discipling your child
Yeah.
for that many hours, for that many days. And so, with the limited time you have with them before school and after school, I really exhort you to be teaching them the Word of God, as we all should as parents. We should
Yeah.
never leave that to someone else. But that you be having conversations with them that are meaningful and deep and biblical about what they are learning and what is true and what is not true and
Love
what is
that.
worldly wisdom and what is of the Lord. Because the person that invests the most time is the one that has the ear of your child.
Yeah.
I exhort you that if you have your kids in Christian school too,
Mm-hmm.
and if you homeschool, I want to encourage you, don't do that out of fear. Oh, I'm
Mm.
afraid of the other options, so I'm going to homeschool. I'm going to hold on tightly. No, do it out of opportunity and calling if that's what the Lord has told you to do. If you don't have an education degree, that is okay. There are wonderful resources. Seek out someone who knows curriculum well within the local homeschool community. There are some better math resources than others. There are
Yeah.
better language arts resources than others. Our family did a lot with the classical education, Charlotte Mason approach. We have other friends who did a very traditional a Becca or Bob Jones package situation or Sunlight. There's a lot of different ways to do it, but learn as much as you can about it. Pick something that works well for your child. I know Kathy Duffy Reviews does a good job breaking down curriculum for the personality of the student, the
Love that.
learning style. That's a great resource. But really, prayer. You can't get around prayer as you are picking an educational avenue for your student. You need to seek the Lord on what is right for them, and you need to be invested and aware, no matter what direction. There are wonderful opportunities for online courses if you feel intimidated about teaching all of it or your schedule doesn't allow. There is some financial investment in that, but that's something that, at least in our circumstance, really enabled me to continue just being their mom and continue serving in the church without losing my mind in those busy seasons. Um, I also want to encourage you to whatever direction you choose to go. Your child is someone that you are stewarding for the kingdom of
Mm.
God. They don't
Love
belong
that.
to you. Don't hold back their educational opportunity to learn math or to learn language arts just because you don't feel that you need it where you're at.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know what God has for them, and they might for what God is calling them to do. That said, you don't carry the weight for all of it. Surround yourself with people that are able to come alongside and help you. And that's where, Lauren, we talked about the co-op ideas.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to go into that. I actually just forgot the last question you had given me.
Well, you kind of you answered it in the sense of staying in touch with your child, no matter
Mm,
what avenue of education they are
yeah,
in, whether they're in public school, homeschooling, in
yeah,
Christian school. You hit it with prayer and communication, and
yeah.
really being invested and in touch with your child. And seeing, and I like that you shared when different homeschooling, whether it was the online homeschooling when that didn't work, and then the
Hmm.
Lord showed you something else, and that's okay if something
Yeah,
doesn't work. That we're gonna make those adjustments, but it was
yeah,
all just being sensitive to your child, and sensitive to the voice of the Lord. And
yeah,
Lord, what is going to be the best educational approach for this child? The
yeah,
Lord made our child. The Lord knows them so perfectly well. He knows their different personalities, and He's going to guide us in the best
yeah.
direction for them. And so I thought that was incredible.
How much time do we still have,
We probably about
approximately?
like 5 minutes.
5 minutes? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, with the homeschooling side and with building community side, one more thing that I know we wanted to touch on
Yes, we
was
did. Yeah.
building community. And for pastors' wives, you guys are in a unique situation where you have the ability to foster that community within the church as
Yes.
well. Not all of you, but many of you are. And so I wanted to just share a resource that I had shared with Lauren. The pastor that we transitioned for here in Missouri was going on to be the president of a foundation that has a heart for furthering Christian education in the United States. It's called the Herzog Foundation. They have a website, theherzogfoundation.com. And they have been creating training opportunities where either teacher training to equip you to bring in biblical integration to what is being taught in your classroom or with your homeschool student, or to teach you how to build something like a co-op, or if your church is interested in building a Christian school, they walk you through how to secure grant money, how to set up administration, how to set up curriculum, a lot of the brass tacks of the organization of schools and co-ops.
Mm-hmm.
These trainings that they provide are in multiple different locations. You can go on the website and look at what's available for the sake of time. But all they ask is that you get yourself to the training, and they provide everything else free of charge. They take care of your lodging, your food, and the training seminar, whatever it is. If you find yourself in a place where you're saying, what's next? I don't know, and I want to bring it to my church, that may be something that is a good resource to look into for you as a homeschool mom, but also someone that might be starting a co-op. The other thing I would encourage you in is there are so many philosophies, there are so many opinions, and you get a lot of moms together, especially if there's mixed Christian maturity among that group, and you can have sparks quickly. So one thing that I just want to encourage you in is you seek the Lord. You find out what is the culture of our homeschool that the Lord has for now. And if you want to share that beyond the walls of your home, then you know who you are and you invite people into what you're doing rather than letting it be all the opinions flying everywhere and the loudest voice wins. If someone has a different vision for something, they can start that. But if you as a pastor's wife want to bring other people along, feel free to walk your calling and just share it with others. Don't worry about getting caught up in the spin of everybody's opinions, wants, and needs, because you will burn out and you will find that it robs the joy of teaching your children if you're in that situation. So I don't know if that covers some of the things we talked about, Lauren. Can you think of anything I'm missing?
No, I'm glad you remembered. That was the last bit of information that you gave. I really wanted to make sure that we got that out there because that's an amazing resource, especially if you don't know where to begin, where to start. If you want to say that website one more time so that people can get into it, and then maybe we can post it on our Pastor's Wives Instagram page under resources.
Sure.
That way people can go back and check that website out.
Yes. It's called the Herzog, HERZOG Foundation.com, and you would look up educator trainings. But if you are looking to start a private school or something beyond that, they also have administrator trainings as well.
That's great. So if that is a resource that you are that may be available to you, want to check that out, please visit that website. I know that would be just beneficial to, Ashley, you said you went to one of those trainings and you just, learned a ton. And I think it would be very beneficial, for anyone to check that out and see if that's something that the Lord is calling you to do. But I end with calling because Ashley said it just a minute ago. It's a calling. Wherever the Lord has you. And I love that she ended with not trying to listen to the voices and to what everybody else is telling you. What is God telling you? How is He leading you? And being open in every season of, your life. And they were going through some very challenging seasons, just moving and the kids and transitioning different churches and, just even the things that happen at the church. It's a lot. And so we understand what's on your plate. And we understand the different things that you're going through. And then when taking on education can just seem so overwhelming, but when God calls you to it, He will enable you to do it. And Ashley just gave such amazing resources to help support you, things for you to start digging in. And hopefully we can have Ashley back. Maybe we can, dive a little bit more into education and talk about it a little bit more, because we could have talked all day on it. But we are just so thankful to have you, Ashley, and thank you for sharing your story and part of your family's history through this. I know that many were encouraged by it. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you so much, Lauren.
So we are going to wrap up this episode. We will be back with you next week, and we hope that you are being blessed and encouraged by these podcasts, by these resources we are making available to you. And we are looking forward to being with you again. So we will talk to you later. God bless you.